Denialism is the root cause of many social problems in America today, and both conservatives and liberals engage in it. Denialism is defined as the act of refusing to accept the truth or reality of something, even when there is evidence that it is true. It is an irrational action that can be a way to avoid uncomfortable truths. Those who engage in denialism prioritize ideological stances over facts, reality, and common sense. Thus, they appeal to political and tribal allegiance over actually wanting to solve the problem. It may work in the short term, but history shows that things based on falsehood are doomed to collapse. On the right, Trump voters are in denial that individuals with his personality traits fare very poorly in positions of leadership. They are banking on the belief and blind hope that such negative traits are worth the risk in electing someone whose political stances they strongly agree with. A good analogy of this is a sick person needing a liver transplant who willingly chooses to receive a liver that has a clump of cancer cells. Yes, the new liver will keep him alive for a while, but eventually those cancer cells will express themselves, take over, and the body will die. But some supporters are under the illusion that Trump's negative traits, namely dishonesty, selfishness, unscrupulousness, narcissism, ignorance, manipulativeness, vindictiveness, and lack of empathy are an asset, not a liability, given what he's up against. These Trump supporters have oversimplified the social challenges we're facing, personified them into one entity some call the deep state, and have framed the situation as a battle between good and evil, with religious undertones. This is embracing ideology over evidence and is a full rejection of objective, rational thinking. It is choosing faith over reason. Faith is best used for guidance when no evidence is available to assess and determine what might come. It should not be used when evidence is available, as in this case. We know Donald Trump's record very well. We've seen what happens when people like him are put in charge. It is not good. Evidence shows that successful leaders in business, the military, governorships, professional sports teams, nonprofits, and other organizations lack the negative traits of Donald Trump. They've been tried many times before, and the consensus is that they don't work in today's diverse organizations. Experts in business and leadership write about this in some form. For example, Simon Sinek writes in his book Leaders Eat Last that great leadership is about creating a circle of safety, where people feel secure, valued, and empowered to contribute. Sinek says that leaders must prioritize the well-being of their teams over personal gain, fostering trust and collaboration. And Daniel Goleman writes in his book Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, that leadership effectiveness depends heavily on emotional intelligence, or EQ, which includes self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. According to Goleman, leaders with high EQ can inspire trust, navigate challenges, and build strong relationships. This is not to say that there are no leaders who share Trump's traits. Leaders who are hired and later found to have these traits typically face internal rebellion, an exodus of talented and experienced workers, a decline in morale and productivity, a decline in performance and revenues, and the leader is eventually removed by the stakeholders, but only after leaving a costly trail of destruction. Trump voters know this. They are likely to have direct personal experience of it, yet they dismiss this evidence and switch their value system in voting for Trump to lead the country. They convince themselves, this is different, but it is not. It's the same formula, it's the same inputs into the system, and we'll get the same outputs, but on a much grander scale with Trump helming the country. It is also well known that Donald Trump is not a very good business person, having started multiple failed businesses such as Trump University, Trump Steaks, and Trump Casino, which is evidence that supports Sinek and Goleman's points. Trump supporters reject this evidence as well. This is practicing denialism, and it will lead to bad consequences. A second example of denialism on the right is the issue of firearms. The belief goes like this. If every adult owned a firearm, everyone would think twice about committing a crime because of fear they would be shot, and society would be safer. Also, they cling to the Second Amendment, which gives citizens the right to own a firearm. The reality is that studies show that in cities with high per capita gun ownership, there are more gun deaths via homicides, accidental shootings, and suicides. However, I'll acknowledge that many other factors come into play, such as population density and demographics in race, median income, poverty level, and median age, which all have a bearing on gun deaths. What the studies say, though, is that a high per capita gun ownership does not necessarily have a deterrence effect. There are indicators that the two are inversely proportional, and at best, more gun ownership does not lead to more safety and less deaths. Here are some rational arguments against an armed society. 1. A person who is inclined to use a gun during a crime is already not deterred by the law and possible consequences of his actions. Such criminals are opportunists, and, in an armed society, are likely to account for this, such as by shooting the victim before he has a chance to get his gun. An armed person with criminal intent will always have the element of surprise over the armed person he's targeted because you can't read minds. This negates much of the advantage of everyone being armed. 2. Many people simply aren't fit to learn how to use a gun properly. Some people fear handling guns. Many lack the temperament required for safely using a gun and are likely to injure or kill themselves or innocent people during a crisis. 3. In an armed society, a shooting in a busy public place such as a packed store is bound to cause chaos and multiple wrongful deaths. Imagine the criminal shooting someone during a theft and a good Samaritan returning fire. But your location in the store obstructs your view of the criminal, and all you see is the good Samaritan shooting. And you assume he's the criminal, so you shoot him. Someone else sees you shoot and kill the Good Samaritan and then shoots you. Such scenarios are unpredictable and chaotic. Even seasoned law enforcement personnel are prone to shooting the wrong person. To me, the pro-gun folks have this fantasy that in such a crisis, everyone will handle their gun like a highly trained FBI agent and the good guys will kill the bad guys every time. This is simply wishful thinking. This is denialism. Here is my final argument against high per capita gun ownership and lax gun laws. Despite the horrific gun violence we see in the news, it still is mostly not that common in most cities, aside from outliers like Chicago and Los Angeles. Therefore, arming society to deter crime is not worth the risk. This requires having a gun on standby on every person and in every household. The statistics are clear. Increasing the number of guns in a population will lead to more shooting deaths. Why take the risk of arming the population when your chances of being the victim of a crime are very low to start with? When a husband and wife are having a heated argument, it's best that a gun is not accessible. When there are small, curious children in the house, it's best that a gun is not present. When someone is feeling sad and depressed, it's best that a gun is not close by. When you're a law-abiding black male, it's best you aren't open carrying in a public place. These are scenarios where the gun is more likely to kill innocent people and are examples of the potential dangers of having an armed society. Bottom line, handguns present a unique problem to society. They are small, easy to conceal, relatively easy to acquire, and they wield tremendous power in that they can end a life in a second, on demand, from a distance, with just a twitch of a finger muscle. No other thing that is available for purchase has this ominous capability. This is why sensible gun regulations are a must for a peaceful, healthy society. Do you agree with my arguments? Do you have anything to add? If so, please comment below. The goal is to foster discussion, learn from others, and find a good solution.